Hello and welcome to Amanda's Wellbeing Podcast, a podcast where we discuss all things relating to your well-being, including interviews with experts in the fields of nutrition, mental health, physical health, and my 5-minute food facts series. I'm Amanda Hayes, your host, a nutritionist with a passion for well-being. Before I introduce today's guests, I will take a moment to let you know that you can subscribe to my podcast on YouTube, hit the red subscribe button, or on your favourite podcast app, iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, Spotify, or Google Podcasts. I will also mention that although I will often be speaking with experts, any information or advice provided on Amanda's Wellbeing Podcast is not intended to be used to treat, cure, or prevent injuries or medical conditions, and is not a substitute for advice from your own health professionals. Today I am here with Helen Hyde. Helen is a personal trainer who runs her own business, Helen Hyde Fitness, but she's not always been a personal trainer. She used to work in the corporate world. Apart from discussing Helen's personal training business and the benefits of movement and how that can contribute to your well-being, another thing I'm really interested to delve into today is women and their decisions to change career, because nearly all the women I've interviewed, bar one I think, have changed, and it's often been a change from the corporate world into something that aligns more with their passions. So Helen and I will have a chat about that. Hi Helen, welcome to Amanda's Wellbeing Podcast.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. So as I mentioned in the introduction, I'd really like to focus on two things today: personal training and the benefit of movement, and also women and career change. And we'll have a chat about Helen's career and what she's done and how she's arrived at where she is today. So first of all, can you tell us a bit about your transition from the corporate world to becoming a personal trainer?
Certainly, Amanda. Well, if I look back sort of throughout my professional career and the career that I'm in now, I perhaps never thought that that transition might have actually been where I thought I was going to end up. So I have been in corporate HR for the last, I was in corporate HR for the last 13 years.
Wow,
A long time. And I started, once I left school, not really knowing what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was going to do nursing. That's where I really thought I was going to end up.
Did you start nursing at all, or never went down that road?
No, I didn't start nursing, and I decided that I was going to have the gap year, and my mum was very adamant, or my parents were very adamant, that if you're going to have a year off, you need to work.
Mm-hmm.
So we were fortunate enough where we knew somebody at AMP, and I was able to get an interview and started in a role there. Ironically, that role was in staff training, which is probably like a current training and development in an HR function.
Mm-hmm.
And I had 5 years at AMP, and during that time I met a guy who he and I then went to London together, and we had 3 years in London, and I was doing corporate events, organising, reception work, selling perfumes in Harrods, picking up temp work, where I was that spray girl where you would walk in and I'd say, "Excuse me, sir, would you like to try this fragrance?" So those were the days where you could just arrive in a different country.
Yeah.
You didn't need a visa. We were there about the experience. And we had 3 years in London, and I knew very much while we were there that I wanted to come back and get into HR.
Right.
So we came back to Sydney. So we went Adelaide, Sydney, and I started picking up contract work in HR. I picked up a contract work with Westpac, and that was in multimedia training and development.
Mm-hmm.
So a little, not just like your studio here, Amanda, I was doing a few little voiceovers for a multimedia training centre, which was an additional training support for various parts of the business. And then I finished up picking up a permanent role with Mercer HR Consulting and started at a very low level HR role. And I then had to go back to uni and study because I had no qualifications.
Oh, right. So what did you study?
So I studied a Bachelor of HR Management at UTS,
Mm-hmm.
and I studied part-time and worked full-time.
Wow, that would have been hard.
And it was hard, and Justin would pick me up various nights after work at 9 o'clock. I'd study all weekends.
Oh,
However, the great thing was at that time, my husband came home from work and said that he'd been offered an opportunity to head to Chicago, and that we should look at going. And he was in investment banking at the time. So we made that decision to go. And fortunately for me, Mercer's head office was in New York, offices all throughout the US. So I was able to pick up an HR generalist role in Chicago.
So had you finished your study at that time?
Yes, I had.
Perfect timing. Excellent.
So I was sponsored through work to get a visa, which is very difficult to get a work visa in the US and to work. And I moved into a generalist HR role in Chicago, and we went from there.
Wow. Well, that's interesting. Things seem to go to plan for you a bit, didn't they?
A little bit. Yeah. I mean, we only had a couple of years in Chicago, and then we were then moved to New York with Justin's work. And at that time, I was 6 months pregnant with twins.
Yes. Wow.
9/11 had happened while we were in Chicago. So that really did change the way we felt about being in the US.
Yeah, I bet.
And we had another 3.5 years in the States, so a total of 6 altogether. And Justin said there's been an opportunity to move from New York to Hong Kong. So, Amanda, this is where we have a lot of common...
we do. We didn't actually know each other in Hong Kong, but we've got a lot of common connections, it turns out.
Yeah. So, and that sort of left me closing the loop in my corporate career, and I was happy to do so. I probably could have explored the opportunity of staying in HR, but I had 2 3-year-olds.
Oh, yeah, tough.
I was tempted with, the fact that we might have some live-in help.
Yes.
It was just sort of mentioned very casually that it might be a rite of passage when you move to Asia.
Yeah, and I think the thing about that too is that you don't have any family when you're in Asia, so it is really nice to have a little bit of support, or a lot of support, I should say.
Definitely. And then, and really, once you get to Hong Kong and you've got extra time and resources, it then opened up an opportunity of perhaps what I would like to do next. And you fall into these great expat communities where, your husband is often away. So there's lots of other mums around like you that have got extra time on their hands now because you've got somebody doing the behind the scene things at home, which allows you to get out to walk, to exercise, to reinvest time in yourself.
And so was it in Hong Kong that you decided to change careers? Or how did that come about?
I think where that probably planted the seed. It was the first time where I'd really sort of got back into the gym. I'd been in and out of the gym a little bit when we were in the US, and I had a personal trainer. I had some core issues post-pregnancy.
Oh, not surprised having 2 in there.
Yeah. And the great thing was that then allowed me to start thinking about what I'd like to do. Fitness or exercise is just something that I've always loved. I loved cross country at school. Not built like a natural runner, but I quite like the physical challenge. I like the thought, I've got to get up that hill. So we started doing things like the 1,000 steps behind the Hong Kong American School.
Yeah, and they're really hard.
And they are, and they're up.
Yes.
They only go up. So we do challenges like that. A mum that I met through a swimming class with our kids said she was running a half marathon. I'm like, I could never run that distance. Never.
Never say never, Helen.
Never say never, hey. And I was like, yeah, sure you could. You could definitely do it. We could train together. And I'm like, okay. And before we know it, had enrolled, started training. Unfortunately, didn't run the Macau half marathon.
Oh, did you get injured or something?
I broke my little toe 2 days before the race.
That's so unfortunate.
Yeah, wasn't meant to be.
Yeah.
Wasn't meant to be. But then we had 2 years in Hong Kong, which was about 2.5 years in Hong Kong, which was really good fun. And then we were very quickly moved to Singapore. And Singapore was our longest sort of period of time that we had been in a very long time. And that then, I think, because that then was like, okay, starting again.
Yeah, it's hard work.
It is hard work. It's not, moving countries. This time the kids had to be in schooling.
Yeah.
We had a house. Justin was away. So it does, you do need to keep busy.
Yes.
As you know.
Yeah.
You definitely need to keep busy.
Yeah.
And that's where I met like mums who were either walking or running the McRitchie Trail or training outside. And I knew that I respond very well to being outside.
Yep.
That I thought, perhaps I'll do something. And a girlfriend of mine was doing her Cert 3 in fitness. And she said to me, look, Helen, you do this running and you're always active. Just even out of curiosity, why don't you perhaps study it? So,
wow. So where did you study that?
So, I had to go back, obviously, I elected not to study in Singapore. So you could have done a certification in Singapore. Yeah. However, that certification held no credit back here in Australia.
Oh, right. So it would be a little bit of a, in quotes, waste of time.
Correct. Yeah. So I actually decided to do my Cert 3 through Australian Fitness Network, and that was via correspondence. I am not the best correspondence student. I need to be in the classroom.
You need someone there saying, come on, Helen.
It's not so much that, it's the questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a visual person as well, so I need to see things not just in black and white.
Just read it, yeah.
So, technology's come a long way from perhaps just a textbook where we can have things online, but a lot of the fitness industry wasn't geared up that way initially. So went back and did my Cert 3, and that was interesting. Probably took me, I don't know, probably 8 months, 9 months to do it. But that then didn't allow me to work in Singapore. And then what I really needed to do was to go back and do my Cert 4. And the thing about Cert 4, it's definitely a higher level of qualification, and it allows you to be able to, sort of deepen your knowledge of the fitness industry and then sort of administer, competently some one-on-one training.
Yes, and you can't do that with the Cert 3, is that
not
right?
No, correct.
Well, you're not supposed to.
Yes, you're not supposed to.
Yeah.
So, and that's sort of where I really wanted to be. And then sort of before I knew it, I set up a business. It was word of mouth.
Where was that? Was that
in
still
Singapore?
In Singapore?
Yeah. So it was sort of doing about 22 training sessions a week.
Oh, that's a lot.
It is a lot. One of the biggest challenges with Singapore is the heat.
Yeah, I know.
Constant.
It's always hot, isn't it?
It is always 32 degrees and possible chance of rain.
Yeah. So did you train outside then in Singapore?
Yes. So I am definitely, my preference is to always train outside. I'm definitely outdoors. So I would drive to people's condos and train them outside in their gardens. Some condos had gyms, which some days it would just be too hot and you just couldn't, or there'd be no shelter. So we would be in gyms. Some people in their own homes had gyms.
Okay.
So quite a lot of the homes had dedicated spaces to be able to do that. So that was a bit of a treat.
Yeah, that's nice, isn't it? You don't really get that here so much.
Not so much. I do have a client that has her own gym here, which is amazing.
Wow. Does she use it when you're not there?
Yeah, she does. She's getting there. She's getting there. She's definitely getting there. So yeah, I'm definitely preferred is definitely to be outside.
And so then you moved back to Australia, is that right?
Correct.
Did you come straight back to Adelaide or did you go somewhere else?
Yeah, so no, we did come straight back to Adelaide. So my husband and I are originally from Adelaide. So the boy that I went to London with, we married. So it's been 5 countries?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, 5 countries, 1 husband, 2 kids, and a dog and a cat. Yes, so we did move back here with the 4 of us plus our furry friend.
Yes.
And those moves aren't easy.
No, they're not easy. I mean, I haven't done as many as you, but I think it's physically and mentally taxing, isn't it, too?
It is.
Yeah.
And I think Adelaide was probably the toughest.
Yeah, I've heard other people say that, which is interesting, isn't it? Because it's your hometown. But because there isn't a big expat community here, it doesn't function the way Hong Kong or Singapore does.
Correct.
Where people they kind of welcome you with open arms, don't they?
Correct. And, you know, even living in the US, not so much New York, but definitely Chicago, we were somewhat of a novelty because we spoke so differently.
Yeah.
And even at work, you know, people would be like, can you repeat that? Or can you just say this Aussie slang? And I'm like, I don't really want to.
It's
But
like I don't know if you've seen the recent Uber Eats ad with,
yes.
with Sharon
Nice.
Strzelecki and Kim Kardashian. It's so funny.
It's good, isn't it? My husband last night was saying, have you seen this ad? Yeah, that's very good. Very good.
And so back to your fitness business. So when you came back to Adelaide, did you set up straight away, or how did you do that?
Well, a little bit like what we were sort of talking off air before. I sort of gave myself the first 12 months to sort of get our kids settled.
Yes.
And we moved back, you know, term 3, week 6. They started on a Friday.
Oh, right. So not a great
we gave
transition.
them as much of a challenge as possible. It was just timing, getting out of Asia and getting our content sent and getting the dog out of quarantine. It was just lots of moving parts. So I sort of gave myself 12 months to sort of get settled, get acclimated. We were renting. We were in the process of building a home. There was just a lot going on.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't feeling... I was very unsettled because we'd been out of Adelaide 23 years.
Yeah, it's a long time,
Yeah,
isn't it?
it's a long time, and a lot of things change and a lot of things don't change.
Yeah.
Which has its own issues.
And one thing I found as well was you need to make new friends, even though you have your lovely old friends. But everyone's moved on over the 20 years or so you've been away and have different aged children and whatever. So that takes a bit of effort.
It does. It does. And it's not always easy. But, you know, the one constant for me, I think, is that for me to feel better about something is I have to move.
Yeah.
And, you know, running, even though I said I could never run a half marathon, when Anna
done
sold
more
it
than
to
that.
me, I have done a little bit more than that. Being, you know, just sort of able to get out the door quickly, you know, loop around the block for 6Ks or something like that, would just give me a bit of structure, would open up my headspace, and give me a bit of a coping mechanism. And I respond a lot better to challenges when I've got that in my life.
Yeah, I'm the same. So then how did you, once you were ready mentally, how did you go about setting up Helen Hyde Fitness?
So that was like, I sort of, you know, I don't know where to start, and I don't know whether, you know, anyone's interested in this, and an older trainer, female. I don't want to be in a gym. And, you know, a friend of mine just said, Helen, build it and they will come.
Yeah.
Build it and they will come.
And it's happened, hasn't it?
And it has happened, yeah. And I'm extremely fortunate to have a really lovely group of clients who are all women, and that's where my focus is. I get how things don't work post pregnancy, having had children, the changes in life, stresses that we have.
Yeah.
So I started training some group training sessions down at Unley Oval, 3 days a week, Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning, Friday morning after school drop off. I just invited people to come along, spread the word, and that's how it went from there.
Wow.
And it was just sort of people in different pockets.
Yeah.
I'm not great on social media and Facebook. It's not really, I don't hunt for clients.
No, but it sounds like you haven't needed to.
No. And I sort of feel like when people come into your life like that, it's a very organic process. It's they're in the right headspace. And look, you know, sometimes I'm not always the best fit for somebody if they're after something particular that I don't offer, but that's about perhaps finding them an opportunity or a trainer that is a better suit for them. So, so I do the 3 group training sessions a week, and then outside of that, I do one-on-one trainings with client, which is a lot more specific if they've got a particular goal.
And what about if they have an injury? Is that something you help manage?
Yeah, look, you know, there's definitely times where we have to work with allied professionals.
Yeah.
So whether it be a physiotherapist or another specialist, you know, people do get injured. not on my watch. I would hope not. But stuff does happen, or a tweak. So it's about perhaps, making sure we move into anything that I've identified and someone's spoken about, or depending on what type of training it is. But if it's a one-on-one, we would have gathered that information through, a lifestyle questionnaire. But if it's group training, someone might say, gardened all weekend, pulled a muscle in my back. Yep, okay, let's take that in consideration.
So you might say to that particular one, everyone else do a burpee, but you do something else.
A modification to it. Definitely. There's more than one way to skin a cat, and we just need to think about, these things and how we modify them, because not everybody has... fitness levels vary.
Yeah, of course they do, and especially within a group. I'm sure you have to manage the different levels.
Absolutely, definitely.
And make sure everyone gets, I guess, what they're looking for out of it.
Yeah.
So how do you then prepare for a group class? If you know you're taking one, do you prepare beforehand, or are you at the point now where you can just do it off the top of your head?
There's a little bit of that, especially if they... Generally, I like to prepare. I like to write my programs once a week. I try to do that on a Monday. I try to do it in the mornings because I'm always a little bit spent by the end of the day, or certainly in the evenings. So if I've been training during the day. So as a best practice, I normally text everybody the night before, group training, only oval, 9 o'clock, tomorrow bring your mats. If it's hot, we'll be here.
Right, okay.
So we've identified the location. And we have had times, Amanda, I think a couple of weeks ago, you were away.
Oh, the 40 degrees.
Well, and it wouldn't have been anybody in their right mind unless you were gone at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
And I train most of the mums after drop off.
Yeah, which is the perfect time, really, isn't it?
Yeah, get it done, be home by 10:15, and then start your day. So, and there's definitely program writing. So it might be that particular day that we're doing functional fitness, so all body movements. We might be doing a series of, arm work or leg work, core work. It could be we're doing some interval training. So I might sketch out something rough.
Yes.
And depending on who's coming.
Sure.
So I will know that, 3 of the girls have great cardio, one doesn't, one has asthma. It's seasonal asthma, so we might have to tailor that a little bit more specifically. So, or they rock up and they've been out the night before, which is not unusual for this time of year, and everyone's perhaps a little more dehydrated than what they might normally be. So we've just got to make some modifications. But that is about part of my job.
Of course it is, that's
about,
one of the reasons people come and see a trainer.
Yes,
to have that specific knowledge about.
Definitely.
And have any of your clients inspired you?
Oh, absolutely. Like, I think the fact that, I've got clients that are 4 kids under the age of 8, hold down a part-time job in, professional women and roll up to training twice a week. I mean,
amazing.
That is amazing. I've had clients that have had prepared for the New York Marathon. Well, running a marathon you just can't pull it out of the bag.
No.
And as much as you definitely can't pull it out of the bag, but there are times where you can perhaps roll up to a 5K fun run, and that's easier to do. But there's a lot of mental preparation. There's a lot of preparation that goes on behind the scenes, juggling your family and making sacrifices.
Yeah.
So marathon runners, special occasions, special birthdays, want to wear the fancy dress, want to feel great. They're all really important factors.
Of course they are.
And about how you feel about how you feel about yourself. I've had clients that have been in Singapore as young as 16 that have had ADHD and other issues that were identified through school and school counsellors, and working with them and their family on integrating sport and fitness into their lifestyle to help them manage.
And has it helped?
Definitely.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting, isn't it?
And food and nutrition is a big part of that. As you know, I don't want to do myself out of a job, but what we put in our mouth is probably more important.
Yeah, or equally, I guess.
It's, it's really, really important.
And so what are some of the benefits you see in terms of helping people move in the right way? Have you seen any, well, obviously there are physical benefits. What about some mental health benefits. Have your clients reported feeling better and things like that?
Yeah, look, I think that, from certainly in the world that we live in today, we know that there's absolutely exercise or movement is definitely healthy, and we know that people's ability to be able to cope with stress and anxiety is definitely lessened when we have a physical outlet.
Yeah.
So I box with some clients, and I sometimes will get a text message the night before saying, "Can we box today?"
Right. Oh, that's interesting, isn't
Yeah.
it? That must, it's quite physically demanding boxing,
Correct.
isn't it? So.
Yeah. So look, definitely enhancing your mood.
Yeah.
There's definitely a benefit for that. We also know that it gives you a healthier immune system. So I know when I have been training for certain things, that I definitely am a bit more resistant to colds.
Yeah.
However, the catalyst to that is as if I don't get enough rest.
Yeah, it's a balancing act, definitely, isn't it?
Yeah, and I sort of I think we can probably touch on it a bit later, but, if you don't take the right time to rest, your body will choose that time and it won't be convenient.
Of course it won't.
I've
Actually,
learnt the hard way, Amanda.
you have, and that's a good segue into your marathon. So Helen ran the Adelaide Marathon, didn't you?
Yes.
A few months ago now? In May. So perhaps you can tell us about that, about your training, what you did, how it went.
Well, look, running a marathon is one of those things where the first marathon I ran was the Great Ocean Road. So you start at Lorne and finish at Apollo Bay. It was a New Year's Eve discussion with some friends from Victoria. How hard can it be? Elected to train myself for 20 weeks. It's hard.
It is really hard.
It's hard. And Great Ocean Road is a lot of hills.
Yeah, extra hard.
And you sort of finish at the 42.2 kilometre mark, but then you've got a kilometre and a half to run into Lorne, and by then you're done.
Yeah, well, you're an ultra runner then.
Well, I don't. Let's not. Yeah, definitely not. But I was quite driven by my goal, and so my first marathon was a 4:05, which was absolutely fine.
That's
first
great.
marathon. Great Ocean Road. I was very happy. I was happy with that, but I did want under the 4 hours.
Yeah, you were so close, weren't you?
Yeah, and it just wasn't close enough, and I just couldn't. It took me 3 years to do another one, but I shaved 14 minutes off of
that's fantastic.
that time, and just missed out by about 20 seconds qualifying for Boston, which is fine because that wasn't the goal. So it was a 3:51.16, which I was pretty happy about. And my second half of the run was fast. It was a 1:53.
Oh, a negative split.
From a 1:57. So that was fantastic. And the preparation with coming with that is definitely a mindset.
I agree. I think sometimes with those longer races, whether it be a trail run, a marathon or a triathlon, a lot of it is the mindset.
Absolutely.
Because you've done the physical training. So you physically know you can do
Definitely.
it. It's just pushing through those moments of doubt and pain and I find when I'm out there, I'm saying to myself, why am I doing this to myself? Like, this is painful. No one's making me do it. Yeah. But then when you finish, you forget that and you think it's all worth it.
Yeah, it's a bit like childbirth, right?
Yeah, it is. We all go back for more.
We do. Well, and interestingly enough, you learn a lot about yourself when you're going, when you were the only one that's going to get yourself over the line. So you do realise that that in this preparation, I like the fact that I'm accountable for myself.
Yeah.
I have to get out there and do it. And, my training this time round was 4 runs a week, 2 cross-training days, 1 rest day. It was a lot. I got a little chest infection at about week 8 or week 9, which if I look back, there was a couple of days where I should have done nothing.
Yeah.
But I decided that I would be okay. And you try to juggle it all with a family and running a business and then finding the time to run, and also you're training through the summer, like, with your half Ironman, Amanda, you'll be training, in the heat.
Mm.
So that takes a little bit out of you as well. And, you have your slow days, your slow, easy runs. You have your LSD, your long, slow, distant runs. You have your interval training days.
They're the hard ones for me
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. Well, certainly things like, fartlek training and speed play and interval training, they can be hard and taxing. But at the end of the day, when you come over that line and you're finished and you kick your goal, it really does open up possibilities.
It does. No, it's a wonderful feeling.
It's a great feeling, isn't it?
And as you say, it is a very personal goal, isn't it? But to achieve the goal, you do need cooperation from your family. So it's always good to acknowledge that, I think, because if you're out on a long run, that usually means someone else, maybe your husband, is dealing with the kids.
He is, cricket.
Yeah.
Cricket or sport or, driving the kids around. And Justin is, he always say that Helen is my alarm clock because, I'd come in at 7:30 and he'd go, oh, how far have you gone? And I'm like, 20 Ks or something like that. And he goes, Helen's my alarm clock. I know that's when it's time to get up.
When you've finished.
Yeah, when I've and it is something quite special when you go out and the sun hasn't come up.
Yeah, I know. I love that feeling, to be honest. I'm definitely a morning exercise person. So your career change has moved, as I said, from the corporate world into something that you obviously feel passionate about yourself. Why do you think that so many women move in this direction? What are some of the reasons?
It's an interesting one because I don't think there's any one reason. We have different exposure to different things throughout our life. It might, having a family, you become very aware about nutrition and sleep habits and exercise. We have perhaps different stress levels that we had years ago. So people are looking for an out or something more complementary. I think that perhaps maybe working environments are probably not as flexible as they could be.
Yes,
perhaps
for women particularly.
Now, I was extremely fortunate when I was working in HR in the US that I had a very flexible working environment.
You were lucky.
I was really lucky.
Not all women have that.
They don't, and certainly in the US can be a little bit more challenging. But I was extremely fortunate where I worked with an amazing bunch of women that, family was still regarded as a priority. So my boss would say, it's not brain surgery, go home, it'll be here tomorrow.
Brilliant.
We often don't have the opportunity to leave things in the office, so work comes home, and I think people just get a little bit tired of that.
Yeah.
So I don't actually know. There might also be the fact that there's two very high achievers in the family, and your children are only little, only once. Sorry, they're only little once. And for me, when I came out of the US and into Hong Kong, it sort of gave me that opportunity to exhale, and it felt right for me. It might not always feel right for everybody else. It is an interesting question.
Yeah. Do you think, because you're doing something now that you've always had a passion for exercise and now you're working in that area, do you think you could say you're happier, or is that impossible?
Definitely. Like I guess, there is the parallel with HR and training. It's still goal setting.
Yeah, and dealing with people.
And I think if I look back as why I wanted to do nursing was dealing and helping people.
Yeah.
And that's what I do really love. I need people. Some people are very happy to deal with numbers only. I am not that person. My husband will definitely confirm that. But I need people's stimulation. So I do like to listen to people. I do like to hear people's stories. I do like to hear people achieve their goals. I think, people want to be happy.
Yes.
Want to be happy. And I guess it's one of those things that if you're able to achieve a goal, then it opens up the possibilities of what could I achieve next.
Do you think your life is more balanced now?
I'd say yes, in a certain element. I mean, we took a massive change moving back to Australia.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
So my husband was in investment banking for a very long time and he was done.
Yeah.
So that was just a burnout.
Yep.
He needed to reset, recalibrate. And then as a family, it gave us an opportunity together as our family of 4 together with our families, which we had never lived before.
Yeah, we had the same
Yeah.
experience.
So that's different. But I would say, I think, how you weigh up happiness. We've had a lot of setting up, we both run our own businesses.
Yeah.
Different set
Well,
of
that's
challenges.
quite stressful.
Yeah. Built a house. Stressful.
Yeah, stressful.
Stressful. You throw in marathon training in there, how much more? But I think on balance, and I think you begin to surround, you cultivate that happiness and balance when you cultivate a tribe, or when you have people that you're helping inspire, or working towards a common goal.
Yeah, I think that all those things really do contribute to well-being on a personal level, your own training, but also helping and inspiring others.
Definitely.
The final question that I like to ask all my guests, if you could recommend 2 things that all people could do to improve their well-being, what would they be?
Well, I gave this some thought, and the first one would be sleep.
Yeah, you're not the first person who said that.
Sleep. And insufficient and poor sleep quality can have a very wide range of negative impacts on everything from health to productivity. So, if you will exercise more efficiently, you'll eat better. It has a massive knock-on effect. And so I know my mother, from a very early age, would say that Helen would burn the candle at both ends. Helen still burns the candles at both ends.
So you're not practicing what you preach?
I'm trying. I find the more I exercise, the more diligent I am with it, because my output is much better in the morning.
Yeah.
I don't have as much to give in the evening. And also, if I'm training clients, if I've trained myself in the morning and then I'm training clients all morning, come midday, I'm relatively tired.
Yeah.
And it also is taxing to a certain extent when you're just making sure that, everybody is performing and reaching their goal.
Yeah.
And we're looking at performance-related goals.
It's mentally taxing.
Absolutely,
isn't it?
yeah. So, everything from establishing that routine, I'm much better because I'm more patient. I try to be a bit more religious with it, but I would definitely say sleep. And, sorry, Amanda, you were going to say something?
No, I was going to say number 2.
Yeah, number 2 would probably be kind.
Yeah, that's a lovely thing.
Because... and I'm not saying about, definitely be kind to yourself and to others, and especially to animals. I think especially to animals. I love our animals, and my husband was very adamant that we needed to have a dog for our children while we were living overseas, and a part of that was getting our Diesel back here to Australia, which repatriating animals is stressful.
I've heard,
expensive. And it can go wrong in quarantine and things like that. But, I think people would generally readily agree that, being kind adds to a quality of life. And, we know that receiving it makes us feel better, and we know that giving it, has a lot of knock-on effects. And, we need to perhaps recognize our own signs about self-respect and kindness, like, when we're tired or when we're not well. So, for example, when we're not well, rest. And that rest doesn't mean unpacking the dishwasher and doing the laundry.
Yeah.
It actually does mean doing nothing, because if you don't choose that time to recognize that, your body will make its decision of when you need that rest. And then it never works.
Yeah, which, as you say, might be the week before you're running a marathon or something like that.
And, my own marathon I had an issue, midway through with a respiratory, and then I hurt my back the week of the marathon. And I really was unsure, Amanda, whether or not I was going to be able to run it. One of those things was I had no choice but to rest. So definitely kindness.
Oh, that's gorgeous. I like that. So, Helen, if people want to contact you or inquire about your fitness training, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Sure. So I don't have a website, but I am active on Instagram and under Helen Hyde Fitness, and Facebook Helen Hyde Fitness. So you can shoot me a message.
Okay,
through
I'll put a
either of
link
those ways.
in the show notes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Helen.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. That was the lovely and wise Helen Hyde of Helen Hyde Fitness. You can subscribe to Amanda's Wellbeing Podcast on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button, and while you're there, click on the bell to be alerted when new episodes are available. You can also subscribe on your favourite podcast app, iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, Spotify or Google Podcasts, and you can follow the podcast on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. Direct links to all social media can be found on the subscribe page of my website at www.amandaswellbeingpodcast.com. If you'd like to contact me, you can send me a message via the contacts page on my website. Please feel free to suggest topics you'd like to learn more about and people you'd like to hear interviewed, and I'll do my best to deliver that to you. Producing the podcast is a labour of love. We put in a lot of time, money and effort behind the scenes. So if you enjoy Amanda's Wellbeing Podcast and would like to make a contribution via Patreon, PayPal or by Amazon to help ensure we continue to provide you with excellent content, please visit the Contribute page on my website. Finally, please take a minute to leave a rating on iTunes. It improves visibility and will help me source excellent guests. Thank you for tuning in. Eat well, move well, think well.